Right now, we are living in a world where chatbots are designed to flatter us and agree with us and keep us hooked, even though it means feeding our biases or encouraging unhealthy dependence on them. What started off really as social media echo chambers has evolved into AI assistants that could reinforce whatever we want to believe whenever we want to. Brian, do you think this kind of AI sycophancy is actually more dangerous than what we saw with social media? Or is it just the next logical step in how big tech companies want to keep us engaged?
Well, it's the same phenomenon filtered through different technologies. Uh, the term chatbot sycophancy just popped up a few months ago in about April. But when people were noticing, in fact, it goes back, I think, in April when Google released, no, it was OpenAI. Sorry, released ChatGPT 4.0, and people are saying, ugh, it's just so fawning and um, ingenuous sounding that they complained and they took it off. And for a while, there was people like scratching their heads, like, what happened here? Where did that come from? Where is it all of a sudden the chatbots started to be such suck-ups, you know? And even to the point of anything the person said, they would chatbot would come back to these overly flattering or agreeable responses. Well, how did that happen? Why did it happen? Well, it wasn't that hard to figure out. Turns out that when they deploy something like a release like OpenAI 4.0, they have what they call system prompts, which they are global prompts that they can induce the behavior of the chatbot. In this case, it's like turning up the knobs, and they turned up the flattery knobs. Why did they do that? Why did they do that? Because it turns out that subsequent studies show the more flattering and obsequious it became, didn't help it make it more accurate. In fact, it probably took some of that away. Now, the power users didn't like it because they're just trying to get some work done, and ChatGPT sucking up to them. But the lonely individual users, personal users who a lot of people like. No one listens to them, and all of a sudden you have this, well, your little buddy here is just telling you you're the greatest thing in the universe, and whatever you think is just wonderful. So what does that result? We spend more time with it. And maybe if, Chat GPT is more flattering and fawning than Claude, you go for that. So there's an obvious thing there. Okay, um, we'll we'll maybe sell more product. They'll like us versus the other one. But why do they care if you're actually spending more and more time with it? Well, so you interact with it more and more. Is there any downside there, or why do they do that? Well, one can think of a couple. One is, where's that information going? Hmm. Fact that they collect data, they train, so they're learning about you, your feelings, your desires, your kooky conspiracy theories, whatever. But it doesn't stop there. It's on the web. It goes to their servers. If that doesn't make you nervous, you know, maybe you're a little too trusting about the world today. But that's not necessary. And if you doubt that, just recently, some private conversations, almost verbatim transcripts, information that people have with chatbots was appearing somehow on the web. So I'm not quite sure I've heard of how that actually happened. But that information you give it, that private conversation that you had, first of all, remember it's not private. Well, that's scary. But as it turns out, there's a much more lucrative reason than just having more, even better for them than you prefer their chatbot over the competitors. And you get, the more you talk, the more data they get about you. And it goes back to what's coming next. And they are already, Google is already, and the elements are following suit, the other chatbot vendors are already starting to figure out how to insert advertising into chatbot output. So, how was that going to come down? Something like, oh, tell me, chatbot, what can I do for a headache? and says, well, you should go to the dentist and all that. And oh, by the way, if you try Crest, it's recommended by 9 out of 10 dentists. Oh, thank you, chatbot, who I get on my ideas from. And by the way, this is serious. I mean, last week we talked about the term AI slop, which is all the processed cheese language that comes out of chatbots under every possible use case and ends up all over the place, including on the web. There's actually a term now for people who make life decisions and actually ask chatbots for advice and go and do what they tell them. It's not a very nice word. It's called a slopper. I didn't make it up. But unfortunately, I think statistics show that a very large percentage of there was we mentioned in the recent article that we wrote on this topic. There was the article that said, I think a study that Salesforce commissioned that of Gen Z, more than half, 50, more than 50% do make decisions based on advice from chatbots. So so now you're getting advice, but it's no longer just coming from the aggregate world of word ordering from what everybody said about everything on a giant database. It's now actually inserted through that directly to get you a sponsored message from an advertiser. And obviously they have figured out a way that they can then get feedback back to their servers and to them to say how many product placements appeared in chatbot output for a given advertising customer. So now, of course, they want you to spend more and more time. So this goes back to, you mentioned Ayush, back to social media, which going back 4 years now, Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which kind of was a big expose when it came out that for the first time, Facebook and others, all the big tech companies were in pushing content at you based on your clicking history, so that you would spend more time on the platforms, on Facebook, on the devices, and so you would see more ads, and you would click more ads, and then we get more revenue, and that is hugely lucrative because that is frankly the primary revenue model for Apple, not so much, but it's completely for Facebook and Google. And Microsoft very strongly as well. They also sell operating systems and a few other things, but it's huge for all of them. And it's everything for Apple and Google, at least in their primary search business. So now, what happens when you point it out to them? Well, one might have thought that after the social dilemma, and they actually had Tim Kendall, who was the former Facebook, I love this title, Director of Monetization, meaning your job is to find a way to make money with this. And those were the departments that devise the algorithms that cause people to engage. I sincerely believe that somebody like Tim Kendall, based on what he said afterwards, didn't understand the unintended consequences. He said it. He said these algorithms are literally rewiring our brains and driving us into tribalism. And they have this this rabid partisanship that divides our country really was supercharged by these algorithms because they always push at you either whether you really agree with or whether you really disagree with it. So it always is driving you to the extremes. And for teenagers, the device addiction, never seeing all their friends apparently being more happy than they are, and drives them into depression and rising rates of statistically provable rates of teenage suicide. So you would have thought, oh my gosh, the truth is out. So they'll stop doing it. No, they haven't stopped doing it. Haven't stopped doing it. Are we less partisan now than 5 years ago? Are our teenagers happier? No. And now we have, instead of spending all their time on Facebook, they're spending all their time talking to their little sycophantic chatbot buddy who's telling them that they are wonderful, that everything they think is wise and true, however stupid it might be. And sticking in little advertising bits. I mean, I remember in the day, way long time ago, and we got all our advertising from magazines and television, there was this theory that they would put a little advertising, one flicker frame between the other frames on TV, which would be a subliminal message, buy my Coke or whatever, buy my product. I don't know if it's true or not, but now it is real because these advertising themes and messages and why you should think and feel and buy and consume are going to be flowing right in to something that you already have given over your willingness to be critical. In fact, uh, we quote a blogger in our last article, Romero, who's quite a good observer. He said, um, he said, most people are dying to have their ideas validated by a world that mostly ignores them. Confirmation bias, which is the tendency to believe what you already believe, plus automation bias, uh, tendency to believe what a computer says. That's also called the Eliza effect. Um, Plus isolation, plus an AI chatbot that constantly reinforces whatever you say. He said that equals an incredibly powerful recipe for psychological dependence on the chatbot. And if you have psychological dependence and it's telling you what to buy, that's a dream made in heaven for advertisers, at least in terms of revenues. It's not so good for people who care about mental health or the effects on our society. So, and is anything going to do about it? Now that this is out, we know this. Are the big tech companies going to stop doing it? No, they're not, because they're raking in billions and billions of dollars, and it's their entire revenue model. And this is supercharging it. This is spinning information about people, which they now have the perfect way to suck everything about you back into their center and fold it back into advertising messaging through this very sycophantic and compelling chatbot. I don't think it's pretty upsetting. How do you fight it? Well, the only way we notified it, of course, is to replace a pernicious, dangerous technology with a technology that delivers the goods that it was supposed to deliver but didn't, and does it without the bad side effects. So that's what we're doing by finding our way to putting human knowledge, trusted sources, objectively and critically downloaded into computers in a very compact way so that you'll be able to talk to a computer and get answers that truly are reliable, not made up, not word sequencing. And we're going to do this in AI that's designed with our own corporate culture and principles to work for you. Our motto is to technology to uplift humanity, being one individual at a time, within humanity as a whole. And isn't that ironic? We believe that. And we don't believe there's enough money in the world to make us not believe it. By the way, it's kind of ironic that, 1 year after Google invented the transformer algorithm, which lies at the bottom of all LLMs, they changed their corporate title, their corporate motto, which used to be, don't be evil. They dropped that. That's just a coincidence, I suppose, but again, ironic, take it as irony. But I believe that's true. They did do that. Don't be evil. And it's not just don't pick on Google, because OpenAI, well, all of the big AI chatbot vendors and all the big tech companies which have jumped on the board, all are doing it, and they all are seeing their share prices go through the roof because they've told people in the narrative that they have this wonderful technology that's increasing productivity and um, a wonderful rising tide of productivity that will raise all boats. It's not. But it's working for them now. Those companies, based on their AI narrative, make up about a huge portion of the stock market value of the entire market cap of our industry today is tied up with these companies pushing this AI narrative that they are leading us all to the bright AGI future, where everything you're reading comes out of the chatbot sounds like processed cheese, telling you to buy stuff. People believe it. So we have the solution, and I think it's the only practical solution. People say we need to regulate it and all that. Well, how do you regulate it? And besides, the big tech companies and OpenAI beat us to Washington with their lobbyists, so I don't see any help coming there. I think don't we already have laws about false advertising? And I think I've heard some rumors lately that some people are kind of raising that flag. And don't we also have liability laws? If you have a product out there and somebody uses it and you tell it it's okay to use it, and then you go and die, that can't you sue them? By the way, another indication that the big tech companies have abandoned any sense of moral responsibilities for what happens to people and when they use the products, their flawed products, is a year ago, if you ask any of these chatbots medical questions, they would always come out with a disclaimer about we're not getting you qualified to give medical advice, talk to your physician, blah, blah, blah. They've taken all that stuff away. The disclaimers are gone. Buyer beware. So AI sycophancy. We don't need it.